I was unloading groceries from my little dock boat when Margaret Harrington's voice cut across the water like a rusty knife. She stood on the mainland shore in a screaming magenta blazer, one manicured finger jabbing toward my island. "Listen up, Caldwell. That fairy tale castle of yours? Community property by sundown tomorrow. We've posted the signs. You'll be trespassing on HOA land before you finish your coffee." Behind her, fresh private property, Lakewood Shores members only placards ringed my shoreline like a noose. Her attorney, Victor Langford, hovered at her elbow, briefcase clutched tight. I kept my face Coast Guard calm, the same mask I wore for 11 years chasing smugglers through fog. 23 hours, 47 minutes, 32 seconds left on the mental clock that started the instant Margaret decided to pick this fight. Most folks would have panicked. I just loaded the last bag and motored home. The island had belonged to my late wife Ellen's family for generations, complete with a 1923 lighthouse still listed as Federal Navigation Aid Station Echo 9. Margaret's subdivision hadn't even broken ground when the Coast Guard took title. But people like her never let facts slow them down. Inside the keeper's cottage, I kept military neat, color-coded binders, shortwave humming, security feeds cycling. A framed commendation from Admiral Hayes hung beside a wedding photo of Ellen and me on this very dock. Cancer took her 6 months ago, but she'd have loved watching me dismantle Margaret's scheme thread by thread. I wasn't alone. Dorothy Miller, 68, retired county clerk 3 doors down from Margaret, had smelled bookkeeping rot weeks earlier. Judge Harlan Brooks, 75, former federal bench, watched the drama like a man who'd seen every courtroom trick. And Claire Donovan, 39, environmental lawyer fresh from her own divorce war, brought firepower nobody expected. The stakes looked simple: my $1.2 million inheritance versus a power-drunk HOA. What Margaret didn't know was that her brand-new waterfront ordinance violated federal maritime law the way a crayon violates a treaty. By 4:30, the community center overflowed for Margaret's emergency meeting. Blown-up posters showed Photoshopped tourists swarming my dock, fake tour signs, even a forged business license in my name. The forgery was clumsy. Pixel halos glowed around every pasted boat. Margaret worked the room like a televangelist. "Mr. Caldwell is running an illegal commercial enterprise, destroying our peaceful enclave." Dorothy leaned over during the break. "Blackwater Construction. That's her husband's outfit. They've been sniffing lakefront parcels since spring." Suddenly, the frame job made sense. Depress values, force sales, flip the whole shore into condos. I stepped to the mic when the meeting resumed. "I have no tours, no business, no intent to disturb anyone. But let's talk maritime boundaries." The room hushed. Margaret's smile twitched. She figured me for a grieving widower out of his depth. She never guessed I'd spent a decade testifying in federal court. 8 o'clock that night, Sheriff Ramirez knocked on my dock, eviction notice in hand. He looked sick. "Jim, this feels wrong, but it's signed." I scanned the page. "Sheriff, I invoke 24-hour federal review. This island never left Coast Guard trust." I handed him copies of the original lighthouse charter. Ramirez whistled low. "If this holds, we've got bigger problems than paperwork." Dorothy's midnight text lit my phone. 847 grand in dock improvement fees, 0 invoices, money gone. By dawn, we had bank records showing transfers to Lakefront Enhancement LLC, a shell owned by Blackwater Construction, then wired to Grand Cayman. The next morning's HOA meeting turned into a riot. Residents waved printouts of missing money. Margaret tried damage control. A simple accounting misunderstanding. I hooked my laptop to the projector. Slide 1. Federal Navigation Chart Overlay, proving the island sat outside local jurisdiction. Slide 2. Money trail ending in offshore accounts. Slide 3. My retired Coast Guard badge. The room exploded. Victor Langford grabbed his briefcase and bolted. "Vote to remove Margaret, 33-2. She cornered me at the door, voice shaking. "I'll sue every last resident into bankruptcy." I smiled. "Every word's on camera, Margaret." Federal camera. By noon, 3 agencies had my packets: Coast Guard Investigative Service, EPA Criminal Division, IRSCI. The lighthouse deed from the National Archives arrived by courier, inked 1923, never rescinded. My caretaking role was official. Ownership claims were fraud against the United States. Agents in hazmat suits tested water at 7 sharp. Years of raw sewage from upscale homes had poisoned the lake to drive prices down. Margaret's final mistake came at low tide. She tried prying the beacon lens loose, convinced destroying federal equipment would kill my case. For cameras caught her red-handed. Coast Guard doesn't negotiate with navigation sabotage. That's domestic terrorism. Handcuffs clicked at 7:43 a.m. Her husband was arrested simultaneously at Blackwater's headquarters. Judge Brooks issued an emergency injunction by lunch. All HOA authority suspended, assets frozen, federal receiver appointed. Total embezzlement uncovered, $2.1 million. Environmental damage, another $900,000 to remediate. Sentencing came swift. Margaret drew 8 years, 6 for fraud plus 2 for environmental terrorism. Her husband got 6. Restitution, $4.8 million. The HOA was dissolved forever. A resident council now operates under Treasury oversight, every dime public. 5 years later, the lake runs clearer than it has since the 70s. Fish I hadn't seen since childhood dart under my dock. Property values rose 15% once buyers learned federal protection was permanent. The lighthouse beacon sweeps clean water every night, a reminder that some lines local politics can't cross. I still live here, caretaker by title, owner in every way that matters. Ellen's garden blooms around the base of the tower. Sometimes I sit on the deck at sunset and think how one greedy woman's overreach saved an entire shoreline for generations. What about you? Ever watched power corrupt a neighborhood? Ever stood up when the odds looked impossible? Drop your story below, especially if it touches injustice or the quiet violence of bureaucracy. Tell me where you draw the line and why.